Hello and welcome in, everyone. You guys don't want to miss this session. I promise you. We are joined by our amazing partner, Fullcast, and along with their team, we have Amy, Selena, and Bala. And today we're going to be discussing crushing your quota in 2025, the territory management playbook. Make sure that you guys are asking your questions either in the chat or the Q&A. We'll be answering those live at the end. And one quick housekeeping, we will be recording this session and it will be sent out to everyone who registered through RevGenius, probably 24 to 48 hours. So by Monday, you guys should have that in your email boxes. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Amy, and we're going to get started with the content. We hope everybody enjoys, and we want to wish you a very happy holiday season from everyone at RevGenius. Amy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gina. It is such a pleasure to be here today, and I am so excited to introduce my colleagues, Selena and Bala. We're so excited to talk about crushing your quota in 2025. I know that we have a lot of us are in annual planning right now, and it's a very timely message. And I love the hearts that came through. Thanks, guys. Let's make this a really interactive session, hopefully. And we've got someone joining from St. George and love it. So thank you guys so much for the chats. Let's keep it interactive. And I love emojis. So thank you. I'm going to introduce my co-founders here. Bala Bhaskaran is the co-founder and original founder of Fullcast. He is also the CTO and has built this product from the ground up. He is incredible. We love him. Thanks, Bala, for joining us today. He's also an incredible strategist, and so we're going to really pick Bala's brain as we talk about what are the best practices for territory management and annual planning. I also am very excited to introduce Selena Ashkar. She's our enterprise sales director and go-to-market strategist, and she is so well-spoken, adept on the product, and able to answer any questions that you might need. So thank you for the clapping emojis. Selena, I think you might have even got more than Bala. We're very excited to, so it'll be a lot of fun to have this discussion today. All right, guys, just as a quick introduction, there are many reasons that annual planning is important, but one of them is that salespeople are missing their quotas and leaving. So 91% of organizations missed their quotas last year, and 58% of sales reps missed their quota Q3 last year, and Q4 was just as bad. 35% of salespeople leave in any given year. So as you know, this can be disastrous for companies. Companies are also taking too long to set territories. 45% of them are doing it late. And we need it to be data-driven. If you are able to estimate your market potential well, 81% of the companies doing that are actually meeting their sales objectives compared to only 31% that don't. So with us just kind of setting the stage for what we're going to talk about today, it is my pleasure to more formally introduce Bala Bhaskaran. Bala, I am so happy that I am here on this webinar to brag about you. Bala does not like to brag about himself, and I like to brag about Bala, so I'm going to do it. So Bala, you were the first one to really automate planning and operations at Salesforce, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yes, and tell me, how many spreadsheets, how many months, and how many people did you have to do that?
Well, it took us about a good 6.5 months from the start of the sort of financial plan getting put together. And through the course of that 6 months or so, we would distribute close to 1,500 spreadsheets back and forth to about 400 people across the company. And I had a team of analysts whose high value job was to make sure that you send out those spreadsheets and put them all back together. They all hated their jobs. And so we, really drove to drive some automation around that, and especially around the idea of a single source of truth when you're planning data that's fresh, and then really kind of building on that idea to automate everything from your capacity plans, to your territories, to your quotas, to your comp plans. So essentially, that entire cycle of things that we have to deal with through the go-to-market process. So that allowed us to deliver for the first time when I was there for 17 years. Was when I joined, and that was the first time in the history of the company that they delivered territories and quota before school. So that was, usually in the past, it usually took a couple of months after the start of the fiscal year before everybody had their territories and quotas. So
Mhm.
really, that was a big proof point that at scale, automation could really drive efficiencies, and that's really the genesis of the idea around Fullcast. And we've been spending the last many years perfecting that idea. So that's where the product came from as well.
Yes, and I love talking about this story because it really like emphasizes this is built out of a strong need, right? A hundred people, 6 months of work, 1,500 spreadsheets, all to so much pain, all to do what Fullcast does
Yep.
automatically. It's unbelievable. So cool. Anyway, but this webinar is specifically to talk about territory strategy. So we're going to do that first before we get into the product. But the results speak for themselves, Bala. What you were able to do was, you know, growing ARR and the sales team by 3x without requiring additional ops support, which is incredible. When we talk about sustainable growth and efficient growth, you did that at Salesforce and then founded Fullcast. And,
Yeah.
I feel so lucky to be able to work with you.
Yeah, and not just organic growth. We also had acquisitions that were happening about that time. Exact Target was acquired around that time, so it was sort of this very bumpy growth that we were dealing with, and my budget was flat right throughout the whole time I was there. So that's, I think, the challenge for most RevOps leaders is that you
That's
you
right.
are constantly dealing with that problem. So
That's right. It's do more with less and make it cheaper.
yeah.
And that's so hard to do. Right? So let's get into the questions. So we've got 4 questions that we put together that I'm going to ask Bala. If you have additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we can ask them as sub questions. We can, lean in more on that. But the first one, Bala, is how do you think about territories from a go to market planning perspective?
That is such an interesting question because I feel like there are so many established traditions and ways in which you build territories uh,
Mhm.
over the many years that people tend to default to those activities without really asking the question of why. Why is their territories built this way, and
Right.
why do they need to exist? So for me, the real fundamental thing about territories is that it's not about distributing accounts to your sales reps. It's not about breaking down the market. That's not the primary goal. To me, the primary goal is how do you map the resources of your company to your customer's journey so that you can support the customer through their journey and their interaction with your company, right? And so really what you're trying to do is maximize that experience for the customer, thereby resulting in maximizing your results. And
Mm,
so a lot of people kind of miss that portion of the story, which is, why do we build territories? Well, we're building territories primarily by understanding the customers, who they are, their ICP, what works, and their journey with the organization. And then you're trying to sort of build roles and territories and accounts and whatnot, and you're essentially your go-to-market program to match that journey as effectively as you can, and to have
mm.
all of the resources available at your disposal, sort of mapping to that customer experience. And of course, not to say that balanced territories and all of those things are not important, but I think the primary goal of building territories must be about the customer. Otherwise, you'll miss the mark. Right? And
1
otherwise,
million%. I was just going to say, you were ahead of your time when we started talking about being customer obsessed. right?
Right.
And we all think of territories as sales territories. That's the traditional model, right?
Right.
But we at Fullcast think of territories in terms of, the whole journey of RevOps: marketing, sales, and customer success. And we have plans available for all of those to make sure that that customer journey follows all the way through the flywheel. And I love that about the way that
That's
we have our
right.
um,
That's exactly right. Because when you think about that full journey, even the word territory, historically it's always been associated with geographical distribution of accounts, and how do you break down the market geographically as the main basis for doing that. And we've evolved so far from that. Even though we use the term territory, it's essentially a book of business, and a book of business that's constructed a certain way so that the resources can be applied to that. And we've also gone away from the idea that there's only one way in which territories are carved, and all the overlays and all the other resources and the supporting cast essentially work within the structure of how the territories are built for the sales team. And what we have seen over the years, of course, is the way that your customer success organization would look at the book of business is very different from how sales would look at crafting accounts. And how you might deal with your sales engineers being involved in the process is very different than how sales would be involved. And so each one of these kind of roles and resources, again, the key goal in trying to do all of these things is really to support the customer, right, in their
Mhm.
journey.
100%. I love that. And I love how you are reframing territory to book of business. One example, so I was on with a customer last night at Fullcast, and we were going through how we're leaning in on their territory slash book of business on a Medicare CPT code. That
Yeah,
was where how we were dividing all of our territories. And so it's really exciting to be able to expand that um, from just a geographical territory to really anything that you have in Salesforce.
right. And the other thing I think, we tend to focus like when you get down to your big giant spreadsheets and you're trying to get the work done and you're running up against the deadlines, it's very easy to sort of lose that focus and really focus on kind of distribution of accounts
Mhm.
and things like that. And that's really where a platform that can help you automate those things become tremendously useful, and especially with technologies like AI can become really, really helpful for you in accelerating those things, right?
Yeah. One
And
of the stats that I heard, well, didn't hear, I read in one of our recent reports was 85%. I think the real term, I think it's really 84% of companies are still doing this massive planning in spreadsheets.
yeah,
And when you think, I'm like, it's mind blowing to me. How can you put the most important part of your business, the strategy and lining everything out and how it all flows downward? How can you trust one static spreadsheet? And that's why so many companies are having trouble, going back to our beginning, making their quota, making sure that the sales team has everything they need, because we all do our annual plans and then we get busy and no, who goes back to a spreadsheet, right?
right. And the flip side of that, Amy, is also that because it's a spreadsheet, you can actually build beautiful castles on that spreadsheet. You
Mhm.
can build a strategy that looks fantastic on paper. And then the next step in the process is how do you actually execute on that strategy within your systems, within your CRM, and so on. And that's the other side of the equation, which is when you do the planning, how do you actually deliver that so your salespeople, when they log into their Salesforce instance, for example, will see the accounts, and how do you do that transition? And that's also where a lot of RevOps teams get stuck doing those things manually because they're trying to implement something that's built on
Mhm.
a spreadsheet, disconnected, in my view, from reality. And then when you try to put it on top of reality, that's where a lot of things start to break, right? And so
100%.
even when you're doing that planning, it's important to make sure you're working off of fresh data, you're working off of a single source of truth. So as you're building it, you are able to then just simply press a button, metaphorically, and have all of those things deployed within your environment. And what this means is that when you have an effective set of tools like that, you no longer have to think about this planning exercise as a one time a year activity, right? And so you could sort of go into more of an agile posture where you can be tweaking things continuously,
Mhm.
because the workload associated with doing all of these things on spreadsheets can become quite onerous. And so that's where I think when we think about go-to-market planning, you really have to have this living, breathing territory plan that you are constantly working on, and being responsive to the market, right? And that's the key.
100%.
And that
100%. And that brings us to our next question, which is, when you create or maintain that territory plan, like what are the biggest problems and how do you overcome that?
I think there are probably about 4 or 5 things, and obviously, trying to do this on spreadsheets, of course, is pretty tough when at scale. Now, if you got 5, 10 reps, you can get away with it; it's not an issue. But
Mhm.
when you get to 200 reps, 300 reps, and then you have overlay teams and multiple roles and multiple products, and things start to get complex because this is a multivariate problem. That's when doing it on spreadsheets is not scalable.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I think you have those kinds of issues. You have issues with single source of truth. I
Yeah.
remember back in our days at when I was at Microsoft, we would sort of bring all the leaders from the field onto a room, essentially lock them in a room for 2 to 3 days and say, agree,
Mhm.
and each one of them pulls out their
You will
spreadsheet.
not come out of this room until you agree. I love it.
And essentially each one pulls out their spreadsheet. They've got different numbers, they've got different ways of calculating metrics, and that's the thing that you're trying to solve at scale.
Uh-huh.
And so
And not
it's,
only different metrics, but also different goals and objectives and things they care about. Like I was on a call yesterday with another client, and we were talking about like how we're going to be like integrating something, right? And the RevOps team, and this was a global organization, massive organization. One person brought up, well, if we integrate it in this way, the RevOps team or the sales team won't have access to managing their deals. And the other team said, "Well, I don't know that we really care." And that was the end of discussion, and I was just, it speaks directly to your point that different teams have different objectives and goals, and we gotta have that unified perspective and
that's right.
unified.
And so there's sort of a single place where that brain exists, right? Which is your
Mhm,
go-to-market plan, and then you can sort of push that out to all of your transactional
mhm,
environments. So that's more of a platform technical sort of tools challenge that you have with
mhm,
building and maintaining territories. But I think just in terms of as a RevOps leader, one of the biggest things is a lack of design in your territory.
mhm,
So if you
mhm,
are the wild west in terms of allowing people to make changes to territories all the time and doing all those things without some rules, some guardrails, etc., things get out of control very quickly, and
yeah,
all the planning assumptions that you made with regards to the design goes out the window, right? And then it becomes
yeah,
very hard to track anything. I remember, at Salesforce, we used to once we did all the planning in spreadsheets and we load them up into the CRM. About halfway through the year, we would audit those again, and about 30% of territories won't look anything like what we designed it.
yeah,
And all the quota assumptions, all the comp assumptions that we made are all wrong because we've naturally started pecking territories and moving stuff around and whatnot, right? So
yeah.
that you have to keep up with that, and that execution rhythm you have to keep up with that, right?
Well,
Data
let's go back.
quality.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, well, a couple more things. When data quality is the other one, it's the bane of any RevOps leader's existence,
Yes.
and that tends to chip away at at your ability to sort of execute and maintain. And I think a lot of leaders would either take one of two approaches, which is a third party service will give me the data, and that's the end all be all of my solution, or I'm going to go spend the next 2 years building a global MDM platform, and that's going to solve my problem. There are benefits to both of them. However, neither of them actually solve the problem, is what I found.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so you really have to get to an understanding of data. It's sort of a truce you have to make with bad data, where you need enough data fit for purpose of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? And as long as you can arrive at that, and that's different for different organizations and different based on your go to market. If you're going to arrive at that point, and be at peace with it, that's really what you should codify.
Mm.
Uh, and in addition to that, the thing that keeps them, in terms of dealing with both data quality as well as general maintenance, is strong policies, right?
Mhm.
And so you need to be able to document them. You need to be able to have the discussion, make simple but understandable policies that govern the rules of the road, so to speak, in
Mhm.
terms of how you maintain it. So I
Mhm.
think those are some of the key things that are important as you're building and sort of operating a territory plan. Those are the things from a planning perspective that I would advise any RevOps leader to spend as much time as you can up front thinking about those things. And again,
Mhm.
don't lose the perspective on the customer. It's very
Mhm.
easy to build processes and policies for internal organization structure, internal benefit.
Mhm.
But when you do that and you lose your focus on the customer experience suffers, right? So
Yeah.
I think that is a just as important aspect of planning and building a go-to-market model as building territories. If you don't have that foundation, I think things start to break down.
100%. So let's go back a little bit. There are plenty of people here on this webinar right now who are in spreadsheets,
Yep.
and without a platform need to be able to put together a strong territory plan. Um, we know, because we do what we do, that we've got to automate it and we've got to use a platform. But for those people who are stuck in a spreadsheet this year, what are the key components that every territory plan should include?
So I think the key, I would say, is irrespective of whether you have a platform or you're in spreadsheets, the key for a territory is to be agile, right? And you don't want to build things that are static and difficult to move, because the effectiveness of your sales team is going to be determined by how agile they are in responding to the market conditions, right? And things
Mhm.
change all the time. So if you build territories that are static or is not able to change and move, that's really where you run into problems. And so for me, the essential components of a territory plan is that you build in enough flexibility and agility into your territory plan, right? So they
Mhm.
move things around. So basic things like, well, what if you added 5 more people to the team middle of the year, right?
Mhm.
So you would need to think about that scenario. Maybe overcarve your territories so how you
Mhm.
have them ready for that kind of use case. Or what if you have to reduce spend in a particular area of the market? So how do you cover that? How do you move and combine territories and temporary coverage? So think about those mechanics, because that's what really kind of keeps the territory plan live and useful. Otherwise, if, as I said, in a spreadsheet and you kind of forget about it, what you have running in your execution environment will look nothing like what you planned for. So that's not what
Mhm.
anybody wants.
That's
So I
right.
think thinking about that flexibility and building that in is important. And of course, some of the key aspects that everybody's shooting for with territories is, things like fairness, things
Mhm.
like balanced territories, fair territories, transparency in the way that those territories are constructed, and how you set quota on them, and how you sort of enable the potential for a sales rep to be able to make their money at the end of the day, to make their
Right.
living. And so I think those are some key aspects of how you should build those out. The other aspects, of course, that people are thinking about is attainment, productivity of people in those territories. How do you get people to, your sales reps to be the most effective in terms of reaching out, your outreach, your inbounds, all of those strategies need to sort of align around this idea of a territory. So you can't just build a territory, in a vacuum. It has to tie into all of these strategies. This is something that I've seen. I mean, I've seen sort of really ridiculous ways of building territories. We've had people that say, I'm going to use the first letter of the company name to determine who gets the account. And
Mhm.
it's an effective way of distributing, maybe effective, but a way of distributing your accounts. But it does nothing for your customer experience. It does nothing for fairness. It does nothing for building, best practices around how to improve and how to be more productive in these territories. So those are, I think, some of the key aspects of key components that you need to have in a
Mhm.
territory. And of course, your go-to-market will determine how you overlay people on it. How do you team around the territory?
Mhm.
So, how do you have the various people that you will bring in to support that journey? How do they get engaged? When do they get engaged? And I think that sort of motion is something that's important to think about
I love
as
that.
you're putting.
Idra, what I got from that first and foremost, besides all the other helpful tips, is that regardless of whether you're on a spreadsheet or you're in a platform, the agility is what's really, really important there, and being able to make changes quickly and be responsive to the market conditions. So,
If you're a RevOps leader, I'm sure you would have heard and you would have run across this in your roles. Uh, your customers, on the one hand, is the sales managers and your sales team, and on the other hand, is the actual customers of your business, right? So you're sort of
mhm,
balancing both of these. And if you're not agile, one party or the other is going to complain, or maybe both, right? And
mhm,
so you can't swing the pendulum too hard one way or the other.
mhm,
Um, and being able to respond is a key success factor, I think, for any
mhm.
RevOps leader, because you don't want the sales managers to come in and say, we succeeded despite our ops people who can't get their act together, right? And that usually results from stagnant or the inability for RevOps organizations to respond and be
Mhm.
flexible, right? And so
Yes,
that.
I could not agree more. All right. Well, so we know that technology, we've talked about the ability of platforms to provide a living plan and to be able to track performance to plan, which is incredible. So, like you said, your execution doesn't look completely different from your plan. We talked a little bit about policies and how important that is to be able to automate those. Besides what we've already discussed, do you have any other thoughts on how AI and automation has changed territory management?
Yeah, especially with AI, I think there is quite a lot of areas that RevOps leaders work with that are just prime for AI to disrupt, right? And I
Mhm,
think one of those things, of course, is how you build territories. So today, we tend to take a very deterministic way of building territories. Typically, most territories are built using either geo, industry, or size of company. That's sort of
mhm,
how people start with and sort of build out territories. But what AI allows us to do is not be that deterministic, but be able to run scenarios given the outcomes that we want. So you can
mhm,
sort of specify, here's the attributes of a territory that I'm trying to build, and you
mhm,
can let AI go do the work that otherwise you would spend time on a spreadsheet doing,
mhm,
but allow it to sort of run multiple scenarios and come back to you with the best outcome that's
mhm.
possible given the variables that you have.
That's a cool use case. I
So
love that.
that's kind of, I think Selena would probably go into a little bit of that, but with what we've done in the platform is, our smart plans is essentially trying to achieve that idea where instead of deterministically saying go build territories that look like this based on these dimensions,
Mhm,
you're basically saying this is the outcome I want on the territory, go figure it out, right?
mhm,
And I think we've gotten AI and machine learning to a point where that's now feasible. That's something that can be done quite easily. I think the other key area where AI is disrupting is around data, and so
mhm,
to be able to do research and to be able to sort of fix data, clean data in an effective way. That's also another area where there is tremendous amount of activity that's happening. Um, with a lot of companies in the
mhm,
market. So that's another area where it's a pain point. I mean, it's There isn't a CRM instance that has perfect data. There isn't one.
Right.
And so how do you tackle that problem? It's sort of an assumed problem that always exists.
Mhm.
The other two areas that I see are around workflows. So a lot of the times, to keep the plan aligned with what's going on in your execution environment, you're constantly dealing with the workflows associated with moving accounts between territories, or moving people between territories, or people changing roles, or people leaving the business, people joining the business. So these are all workflows that are constantly things that you're driving. Your customers for these workflows are essentially your sales team and other parts of the business. And so being able to reduce providing like an agentic interface for people to be able to do that using natural language, that's very exciting, because now you don't have to have these stodgy systems that you have to go in and log in and do stuff. You can simply Slack with an agent and get your workflows done, and so that tremendously reduces the learning curve associated with a lot of systems. Or even if you're trying to do that manually, it kind of it's a night and day to being able to email your RevOps team, here are the changes I want done. Instead of that, you could have sales leaders that are actually self-servicing those workflows on their own, which takes the ops team out of all the mundane things that they're doing, right? And so the other part of it is really around summarizing the territory performance, the characteristics of a territory, being able to tell you're looking at 5 or 6 different ways in which performance of a territory is evaluated. Being able to do that continuously and feed you intent and notifications that say, okay, here's the potential problem you're going to run into, go make the changes, right? And so that's warning to sales managers as well as the RevOps teams. AI is able to drive a lot of that these days. And so those are kind of the areas I see a big impact in our
Those
world.
those are incredible use cases. And as everyone on the webinar can tell, you are absolutely at the top of your game. And it is just so much fun to be able to talk about this kind of important strategy that it, doesn't always, oh my gosh, look at all, Paula, you got a lot of a lot of emojis going on right now. Thank you so much. It's really exciting to see what you've been able to put together. And the more I get into the platform as a user, the more I am just so impressed about how you've really thought through all of these use cases for enterprises. It's really amazing.
Thank
So yeah, thank you. Well, I'm so excited now to bring Selena into our group now. Selena, thank you so much for joining us. It's so
for
fun.
having me. That was awesome, Bala. Love those thought pieces.
Yep. It's so fun to be able to just brag about my team. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm ready to brag about you, Selena. I'm super excited. So, Selena, you're a graduate of the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia.
Yes,
You have
go
spent, yeah, woo! You've spent years bringing Salesforce solutions to market, and you enjoy, as a consistent top performer in sales and go-to-market strategy, you enjoy being the CEO of your territory and exceeding targets, and you live and breathe the importance of territory management every day, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
I'm very excited for you to be able to showcase what this can actually do. And I'm now going to turn this over to you. But before I do, guys, if you book a demo with Selena after this call, either Bala or I will show up with lunch and a special gift. And my special gift is a t-shirt, and we have several options. One of them is F is my second favorite word. Fullcast is my second favorite F word. That was from our design team. You're welcome. And so anyway, we're really excited to be able to get to know you guys on the call. I appreciate the opportunity. The Rev Genius team is so awesome, and we just love working with them. So, okay, Selena, bringing it over to you.
All right. Thank you. Well, very excited to be here and to show more about this platform, especially given all these nuggets of information Bala's given. But yes, I, as a salesperson, very much care about territories and targets. And I think every other salesperson, sales manager can agree. And they are the building blocks, right? The sales team and the addressable market that you have is the foundation of how you're going to bring revenue into your company. And that last question we talked through about how AI and, technology progression is changing territory management. I think it's like, how has it taken this long? Because it's such a foundational element of how you run your business. So that's why I was so drawn to Fullcast is, wow, yeah, at every company I've been at, we do live in spreadsheets for managing this very key component, this foundational element to how we run revenue. And it's amazing to see what Fullcast is doing. And I can't wait to show you a little bit more, see what I see. All right, I'm sharing my screen now. Hopefully you all can see this okay, looks like it. So for today's purpose, Fullcast, helps with a lot of go-to-market elements, but we really want to focus on the territory management piece today. So we're jumping right in here. And what's amazing with Fullcast is it gives you this visualization around what really happens in your go-to-market. So we think about it in a hierarchical approach at Fullcast, and we are a managed package in Salesforce to make this nice and easy for you and your different teams to collaborate, right? We think that this process, this management of go-to-market affects not only the RevOps team, but the sales team, the sales leadership team, the C-level team, as well as marketing operations. And it is really powerful to see our customers being able to better collaborate in a platform like this and really visualize what is going on in our total addressable market and with the resources we have to address that market. So what you'll see over here in this left-hand menu is basically a visualization of your segmentation of the market. So it all rolls up to the all companies level. And as you click through, and these are just examples, every customer's looks a little different, but if you're segmenting by, the geographic region, and then within those geographic regions, maybe you have segmentation by the size of account or the industry of the account, or most likely a combination of all of that. So you can kind of drop through and see what's going on in America. What about enterprise? Looks like we've got 5 different territories in America enterprise. I can actually click through and see, and the data will change with me, what's happening in each of these specific segments and territories. What Fullcast is doing for you here is saying that no matter where you're clicking in your hierarchical, go-to-market segmentation, it all is going to roll up to the all companies level. And if we look over here on the right-hand side, we're pinning some metrics at the top for you. And metrics are basically Fullcast's way of telling you a story using your own data. So it's almost like you can build some formulas in here. A lot of folks do this in like a Tableau today, but we kind of want to centralize all of this, and we can pull together different fields and data points from your Salesforce, combine them to tell you a story. Like, what is the bookings potential of your total addressable market at the all companies level? Or what is that bookings potential in America enterprise? So as you click through, it'll update and give you those indicators right at the top. So this is a great way to, at a glance, just understand what's happening across the board. And are there overperforming, underperforming, struggling territories that you can better address and be more strategic about? So we've got the metrics at the top, and then under here, we've just got the list of all the accounts that land within whatever segment or region you're looking at, or at the all companies level. You can also bring in these columns from Salesforce for some additional data to grab at a glance. So the key here is we want you to better picture and understand what is going on across the board and within each of your specific segments and territories. So how do we carve this out for you? And I think something I like to emphasize right off the bat is, yes, we are helping you carve and actually make the right decisions around what should land in whose hands, but we're not just giving you a plan, right? To Bala's point earlier, this is a living, breathing platform. It's a managed package in Salesforce, and we're trying to help you plan, but we don't want to just leave you at the plan, right? What's going to happen when headcount changes? You promote somebody leaves the company, you're hiring 10 more people, you're introducing a new product line. You drift from that plan pretty quickly through the year, and it continues to change, and you need to be ready to adapt and be more proactive about that. So Fullcast is not only helping you with the plan initially, but also it's helping you stay in line with that plan throughout the year, so that when things change, like data on these accounts or headcount on your team, everything stays where it needs to be, and you're still very much on track to hit that target that you have for the year, despite the changes going on. So we really pride ourselves in being a helper to you throughout the year and not just giving you a plan that's kind of on you to figure out how to stay aligned to it throughout the year. But we will start with the carving here. So let's jump into America and we'll jump into the enterprise territory. So I did want to highlight our smart plan mechanism of carving territories because it is a fan favorite. You can see though at the top that there are other ways we can help you carve territories. We do see a lot of teams really care about just doing it geographically or by industry or in some other unique way or bucketed way. But Smart Plan is great because it allows you to combine different elements and really produce a balanced and equitable territory for each of your reps. So let's go through this as an example. Say I'm building out America Enterprise and I have 5 reps. I want to get 5 territories for America Enterprise. And I want to make sure for my enterprise reps in America, I don't know if you paid attention to those metrics, but the highest bookings potential is in America Enterprise. So we want to make sure that these 5 reps that we're trusting them with this region here are going to have equal opportunities to have high quality accounts and to hit their targets. So when we come in here and tell this configuration to make us 5 territories, we're going to jump into this balancing criteria that's going to help us achieve that equitability. The first and foremost part of our balancing criteria is going to be to minimize disruption. I think RevOps leaders and salespeople will really appreciate this because if you're thinking about automating this a bit more, your concern is probably going to come from, well, what about all these open opportunities we have and all these accounts that are, really specifically tied to certain reps? Don't worry, that's kind of the first thing we factor in here. So you can come in and say, hey, I want to make sure that any, accounts with an open opportunity with a certain stage or later stays with the rep that it's currently assigned to. And, you can get more granular or set up the criteria that makes sense for your business. But we do want to make sure that we don't interfere with any strategic accounts tied to strategic reps. The second piece of this is going to be balancing the accounts by certain data points in Salesforce. So you might want to come in here and say, hey, I want to make sure everybody gets equal number of tier A accounts. And maybe your version of a tier A account is simply an account with buying signals, good ABM signals, the right sort of data that indicates this account is looking to buy. And you want to make sure that each of your 5 enterprise reps gets an even number of those tier A accounts. Maybe you also want to make sure that they're getting a even number of accounts with ARR over X amount. So you can start plugging in that important criteria to you here, just to ensure that everybody really has a high quality territory with an even number of good accounts in them. Then we're going to come to this metrics. Again, I showed you those metrics. They kind of live at the top of the account pages and are telling you a story using your data. So once we've got some metrics in place for you, you can start balancing your territories using those metrics as well. And another thing you're really going to appreciate, because we know that this gets pretty complicated pretty quickly, is corporate families. Do we want to keep child and parent accounts in the same territory? Do we not want to consider them the same? Or do we want to consider them the same if they follow a certain criteria? So a common example we see here is, yeah, we do want parent and child accounts to be in the same territory if they're in the same country or if they're in the same state. But if they're not, then that's okay. They can be in different territories. So we can get very granular on this with you, make sure that it makes sense and kind of help you with that improvement of data. Because to Bala's point, nobody's data is perfect. It's never going to be. But with a system like Fullcast, we can really start helping you identify where those gaps are and help you improve your data over time. Because whether we want to or not, we still are carving territories with or without perfect data. So yeah, here are some just great examples of carving. I think Smart Plan is a really popular one. And then what you're going to get is your 5 enterprise territories. And you can even go into a balancer just to check like how equitable are these territories. And if some rep comes at me or submits a ticket that they don't have as many tier A accounts as another person does, you have a visualization here to say, actually, yeah, you all do roughly have the same amount of tier A accounts. Maybe enterprise 4 has 1 extra and we can kind of shift around as needed. But the balancers are hugely helpful in understanding the equitability of your territories. And you can even have a dashboard with many different balancers comparing it on different notes. So very easy for you to kind of visualize and understand that. I will quickly show you all the geographic way to do this, just in case that's more relevant for any of you. but you can see that the SMB territory, different strokes for different folks. The enterprise needs a smart plan to be carved by, but maybe your SMB team is more geographic. So you can carve differently for different teams, whatever makes sense. And we've got a nifty little map here for you that you can easily carve, slice, and dice in different ways. Let's say we're looking at America here. You can check it out on the state level, 2-code level, the 5-code, zip code level. And what's really nice about this is you can start to make your territories geographically however you want. Say that in the Southeast, we now want to include Oklahoma. I could move it over and get it into the Southeast from here, and even apply a heat map to say, hey, where are most of my tier A accounts? Like, I want to see where those are at. And once you bring that in here, you're able to hover over any split of the country, any country in the world, and just see where are those tier A accounts or any other metrics that would be important to understand geographically. So we love our different carving mechanisms. And to my point earlier, we don't just want to help you carve. We want to make sure that this plan stays in line throughout the year. So once you're looking at this left-hand menu and seeing these yellow dots pop up, that means something has changed. Something has changed, and we think that you need to move accounts because of those changes. Or maybe you have a sales leader in the platform that's saying, oh, you know what, so-and-so wants to cover this account, so I'm going to propose a move of this account. So as a RevOps leader that has the right permissions to commit these changes and actually update the Salesforce ownership from here, maybe you want to jump in and see what is the difference here? What is being proposed? And we can see here that 2 accounts are being proposed to move from this Enterprise 1 territory to Enterprise 2 and to Enterprise 3 territories. So you can commit these changes, we'll update Salesforce for you, and you can even keep up with the coverage of these different territories right from here. You can see who's currently assigned to this territory, whether it's overlay teams, product specialists, sales engineers, managers, account managers, really any type of role can be brought into this. And you can even be proactive and say, you know what, we're actually hiring a few new people in the coming year. They're going to start on this date. And we want to be proactive and make sure that once they're hired, there is a book of business ready for them on day one. We really help decrease ramp time in these ways. We can factor in your ramp profiles here and just make this really easy. You can even get ahead of people leaving the company or people that are going to be temporarily covering a territory for somebody on maybe parental leave. So we just want to make sure we're helping you keep up with your addressable market, make sure that it is always covered by the right people at the right time. There's nothing slipping through the cracks. And even if data or headcount changes throughout the year, you're still on track to hit your goals. And you can show how and why to your C-level team, your investors, your board in a very simple way. I think that's all I have time for, but we would love to show you more. As Amy said, reach out to us for a demo and I would love to give it to you. Thank you.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Selena. You're always so well-spoken. Did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
So with that, everyone, we are ready to take some questions. Would love to receive any questions you might have. Bala and Selena, wanted to thank you again for sharing your amazing expertise here today. It's awesome. So do we have any questions? And if you would like to, please go ahead and drop them in. So far, we don't have any questions. You guys have explained this so well that everyone is completely understanding everything about territory management. We have an exactly, so that's great. Well, if there are no questions, please reach out to us. I'm going to put in my amy@fullcast.com. If there is anyone that would like to reach out and schedule a meeting with us directly, please let us know. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Thank you. Have a great day.